Risk management is one of the core skill sets within the wider profession of project management. Whether your project is purely predictive or absolutely agile, you will need to manage risk. I've made plenty of specialist videos on this topic, but this one is your basic introduction. First, what are risk and risk management? Risk is defined simply as uncertainty that can affect the outcome. Risk is therefore something that can happen, and the consequences could be either good or bad. Typically, we talk about opportunities for risks which have a positive outcome and threats for risks which have a negative outcome. Risk management is the process of managing that uncertainty and controlling the impacts of the risk on your project. Within risk management, we find three things: a set of tools, processes, and attitudes. The basic risk management process has 4 steps. First, we identify the risk. Then we analyze it. Next, we put together a plan for how we'll manage it. And finally, we take action. And then, having taken action, we analyze to see whether the action we've taken has been sufficient to properly control the risk. If it hasn't, we figure out why not, we put together a new plan, and we take more action. And we continue to cycle around until we consider that any remaining risk is completely acceptable. We identify project risks by trying to figure out everything that could possibly go wrong, because usually we're focused on threats. However, if you want to look at opportunities too, you can also think about everything that is uncertain, which could be beneficial if it happens. There are many different ways to identify risks, and we have a whole video on that. When it comes to analysing risks, we usually focus on 2 things. And these are the 2 things that define a risk. A risk is uncertainty that can affect outcome. So therefore, the first thing we look at when we analyse risk is the level of uncertainty, the likelihood that the risk will happen. This can be anywhere between 0 and 1. Obviously, a 0 likelihood risk can't happen, so it's not a threat or an opportunity. Equally, something with a likelihood of 1 will certainly happen. That's not a risk, it's an issue if it's negative, and it's a benefit if it's positive. Scoring the likelihood of a risk is very difficult, and therefore I always advocate that you keep it simple. Low, medium, and high likelihood is a perfectly good scale for most projects. And even for more sophisticated projects, you'll rarely need anything more than very low, low, medium, high, and very high, because you simply do not have the sophistication in your statistics understanding nor the data to give anything more of a quantitative or precise definition of the likelihood of your risk. And since a risk is uncertainty that can affect the outcome, the other important element of our analysis is what is that effect, and we talk about that as the impact. What can happen and how serious is it? We often score the impact on some sort of a scale, again from low to medium to high. And there are lots of ways to do it, but once again, keeping it simple is usually a good start. For those who want to be more sophisticated, the next obvious step in the analysis is to also bring in the idea of proximity, because some risks, if they are going to happen, are going to happen soon. Others, if they're going to happen, it's going to be a long time in the future. Clearly, the risks might be equally likely to happen with equally serious consequences, but we don't need to act in such a hurry with a risk that is going to happen, if it does, a long way in the future. So if we've identified a risk, and let's say for the sake of argument that it's a serious risk with high level of consequences, a high level of likelihood, and a fairly imminent impact if it does happen, what can we do about it? Well, there are 6 core strategies. First, we can try to eliminate the risk entirely, which of course is the gold standard, but equally, it's often very hard to find a single way to fully eliminate the risk without doing the project or a significant part of the project. The next strategy is to reduce the likelihood that it will happen. Do something to make it less probable. Our third strategy, if we can't do those, or if we can and we want to do something else, is to reduce the impact, if it does happen, to make it less serious. The next strategy is to try to transfer some or all of the risk so that the impact affects someone or something else rather than your project. The commonest examples of this are insurance products, which transfer the financial element of a risk, or contracts, where the contractor takes on the risk on your behalf as part of the contractual arrangement. The next strategy is to put in place a contingency plan. This won't make the risk any less likely to happen, and it won't make it any less bad if it does, but now you will have a plan for how to manage it in the moment so that you can reduce the ongoing impact. And the 6th strategy is to accept the risk. If the risk is not very large, if it's not very serious, if it's not very likely, then you may consider that none of the other strategies are cost effective and to accept the risk and deal with it if it occurs. Now, I am aware that PMI introduced a 7th strategy, that of escalating the risk to a higher level of authority. But for me, all that is offering the same 6 strategies to somebody else. It's not a new strategy, it's just an expedient based on the management structures, to my way of thinking. So, what are the key tools and templates that we use in risk management? There are 2 or 3. The first 2, are the risk management plan. And I say that this could be 2 different tools because the term risk management plan is used in 2 different ways. When I learned project management and risk management, I was taught that a risk management plan is the plan you put in place to manage a particular risk. So when you've got a large, substantial risk which can have a big impact, you might put together a whole plan for how to handle it. And I have a video on how to create a risk management plan. However, PMI, in its guide to the project management body of knowledge, uses the term risk management plan to represent the plan for how you are going to manage risk on your project. Both uses are equally valid. Both tools or templates are equally important and valuable to your project, if only we had 2 different terms for each of them. The second key tool that we use on risk management is the risk register, and I have a whole video on how to create a risk register. Sometimes called a risk log, a risk register is a tool that serves 2 principal purposes. Firstly, it is a management tool. We record all of our risks and all of the information about them on our risk register so that we can actively manage those risks and track our progress. It's the tool we use to identify which risks we haven't addressed recently, and so we can turn our attention to them and do something about them. It's also the tool that we record the progress on. The second use of a risk register is that it is a document of record. It is where we record diligently all of the risks we've identified and the actions we're taking to make the process transparent. It is part of our due diligence. It is part of the governance of the project. As a result, the risk register is one of the key tools that shows you are acting responsibly as the project manager. If you or your team members identify a risk, you need to put it on the risk register and document your assessment of it and what you expect to do about it. You won't be wrong if you make an informed judgment and it turns out that your informed judgment is incorrect. But you will be wrong if you don't make an informed judgment or you can't demonstrate that you did. So, risk management is a process that every project manager needs to understand, and it's a process that some project managers will choose to go into deeply. If you do want to go into it deeply, then most large project management organizations have specific risk management training and qualifications. The PMI, the APM, and the Axelos organization, which is responsible for Prince 2, all have their own methodologies and certificated exams. And if you want more of my thinking on risk management, then I have a book called Risk Happens, which is available in its second edition from Amazon, and I will put a link in the description. Of all the disciplines under the umbrella of project management, risk management is one of the most important. If you've enjoyed this video, I have loads more about the details of risk management, and I will put a playlist in the description. Please do give this video a like if you've enjoyed it or learned from it. I'll be making loads more great project management videos for you, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of them. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.